Why are the people of the world scared about their future? There are three reasons. The existing taxes of the Western world democratic economies no longer serve the people, but serve self-invested interests of politicians and those funding them into power over the people. 1970s deregulation of the Western world's banks serves the unbridled greed of bank boards and executives, not the rights and interests of their customers and the democratic nations. Post-1970 so-called free trade agreements between Western world democratic economies and totalitarian economies are crippling in debt the democratic economies. In 2015, the totalitarian economies became the BRICS Nations, now 41% of the world's population. In the democratic nations, billions of people are unemployed, underemployed, and living in poverty. This is happening at a time in the world's history when the resources and technology exist to serve all of the people on a sustainable planet Earth, with confidence in the future. Western world democratic nations need to become competitive in the world marketplace by taking off existing taxes in employment, business costs, and the prices of goods and services they produce instead of paying these taxes to government. Adding a single tax of 2 cents in the dollar to the reduced cost of employment and reduced prices to enable Western world democratic nations to compete against the BRICS nations. Taxing at 2 cents in the dollar all changes of ownership by everyone, including foreign and multinational companies, into, within, and out of the Western world democratic nations. The true and fair value of all economic and financial activity within a democratic nation is the open market value of all changes of ownership. This is the ethical and moral basis of taxation to fund democratic government. 2% tax, fully funding government to protect a nation's democracy. The economic benefits to the Western world democratic nations are the cost of manufacture can reduce to be below that of the BRICS nations, so the manufacturing and service industries can be rebuilt to produce goods and services for domestic and export markets, including BRICS nations. Millions of new jobs and better jobs can be created to cut the cost of government support and give hope and confidence to the workforce. Spending by a fully employed workforce can increase business sales and profits, generating cash to pay off debt. Cash also for investment in new technology, innovation, and business development of new markets away from the BRICS nations. No more having all our eggs in the one BRICS basket. With locally made replacing imports, no cash sent to the BRICS nations. The debt clocks can be stopped and then reversed, freeing cash for investment in new high-tech infrastructure to drive down costs and prices, keeping them competitive against those of the BRICS nations. Economic recovery in the Western world democratic nations must be protected by stopping the banks from speculative trading with their treasury funds, which must be securely invested, but not for profit, only to cover costs. Having recorded and published in the bank's financial statements all exposures to derivatives and all associated costs as an expense as at the date incurred. Establishing a People's Bank for customers' deposits with all the monies guaranteed by government. Having the trading banks subjected to forensic scrutiny by an independent professional regulator with representation from the People's Bank and the accounting profession. Having the banks tender for funds from the People's Bank, with the average daily tender interest rate applied to daily interbank settlements. No more rate setting by another entity. Only 2% tax, and stopping the banks from speculating with depositors' money, and having them report derivatives exposures and costs, can prevent the next global economic crisis and global financial crisis. Without these, the economically and financially crippled Western world democratic nations will hand to the BRICS nations control over the people of the world, who will then have reason to fear for their future. This presentation has been prepared by Derek Smith. For any United States contacts, please contact New Mexico State Senator Bill Scherer. In Australia and other Western world democratic nations, contact Derek Smith. Your future is in your hands, unless you let the BRICS nations take it off you.